All
We're good.
right. So glad to be here with James Adams of Adams Limitless, a headhunter, HR expert extraordinaire. And I'm really glad you're here, James. My name is Agostino Iermieri. I specialize in employee benefits, among other things, with entrepreneurs in different industries. And I'm glad that James is here to respond to a lot of the complaints I'm getting from my clients, which is we can't find people, it's hard to attract top level talent. And so I thought James could help us answer that question. In other words, what are some of the things that employers can do to attract the best talent? Because there's a lot of competition, right, for talent out there. So James, give us your feedback on that, and then we'll kind of take it from there.
Yeah, that's great, Ago. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited to talk on this topic because the reality is I'm literally at the front lines of one of the world's biggest business problems right now. This is a global epidemic in terms of figuring out how to attract the best talent. And then it even gets on the backside of that conversation, which is retaining that talent. So attracting isn't one thing, but then employers are also asking me, well, great, James, how do we actually keep our current talent in the door as well? Because with the competition so fierce, all their people are getting picked off. So it's the entire candidate journey, the attraction strategy to the retention strategy all plays hand in hand. And like I said, I'm at the front lines of this conversation every single day. So it's not just your clients, it's everywhere around the world to say, hey, how the heck do we get people in the door to want to put in an honest way's work? And with everything that's changed through COVID and the entire dynamics, everything's been flipped on its head. It's a wild dog-eat-dog war out there in terms of talent, for sure.
So it's even worse than I thought. And so it's no accident that that's all I hear over and over again. So if you wanted to prepare an employer to wage war out there and get the best people, where would you start? How would you what advice would you give them?
Yeah, this is great. And this is what I love to talk about every single day. So how we like to look at this is we actually break it down into our 4 C's to career consideration. And how I know this, I've had the opportunity to interview over 700 professionals here in Ontario. And what we basically boiled that down to is there's 4 key factors that candidates are looking for when they're considering a move. And this is what I coach them on. I'm also a certified career coach, and saying, hey, Ago, does it make sense to make a career move? Well, let's walk through these 4 C's. Now, obviously, you're wondering what those 4 C's are. So when you're looking at those 4 C's, they're broken down into commute. So when we look at commute, there's a variety of different things, especially nowadays, where it used to be like, hey, are you within an hour driving distance? You could probably consider the job. Now we're having a lot of candidates drawing a hard line and saying, nope, I need 2 days work from home, or I need to be 100% remote. So from an employer's perspective, having that flexibility now is of utmost importance.
Wow, that's part of the equation now, right? So
that's a huge part of the equation.
Are you saying it could be a deal breaker, James? Like if you don't offer that?
1000%. We are now seeing the talent pool shrink and shrink and shrink even more, because a lot of my clients are 100% back to the office, and a lot of candidates just take themselves out of contention because they don't have that flexibility. So from an employer's perspective, if you have that flexibility and you have the ability to do a job kind of work from home, opening it up, that flexibility is going to be a huge factor to be able to attracting talent. There's no doubt.
Okay, so that's one. That's the first C, is commute. What's the second C?
Second C, everybody likes to talk about money. So it's compensation. Second C is compensation. You have to not only just be competitive, but they have to look at the entire package. And that's why I am glad we got a chance to chat with you. I'll go and really connect here. Is it does really include your employee benefits. Do you have a tier 1 gold package, or are you sitting in the mediocre, just kind of average package when it comes to benefits? And then outside of the benefits, what else are you doing to help your employees? So I've partnered with a number of different organizations, for example, like Legal Shield, give your employees unlimited access to lawyers. So if they ever get have any contracts reviewed, get their will done, they can get that taken care of. Do you have other things out there that will separate you in terms of that attraction strategy when it comes to compensation? And how flexible are you in terms of getting creative with the financial ingenuity? What I mean by that is most companies just say, hey, Gago, your base salary is going to be X, your vacation time is going to be X, and this is your bonus structure. Everybody knows that's the standard. If we look at that, that's great. But what I'm trying to get my clients to do now is offer a signing bonus. This is something that is highly underrated right now. And if they were to come to the table, say, I'll go, your salary is no problem. We'll give you the 100K salary. But you know what? Because we really want you and really like you, we want to offer you a 10, 15 grand signing bonus for you to start with us, which you get on your first paycheck when you start here after 2 weeks.
Now, why did that become in vogue, do you think? Is it because people are moving, so there's extra expenses? Or is it just to entice them from another employer who might be offering the same salary? Like, what's the reasoning behind it, if you don't mind?
I think it's a mixture of both, for sure. As we know, the inflation is increasing, costs are increasing, and it really shows you're putting your best foot forward to not only help them in the long term, but help them right now significantly financially right now. So if they have a big project, they want to renovate their basement, or they want to, I mean, you won't do that for $15,000, but if they have a big project, then the injection of cash flow right now. And also an underlying thing that this actually does, but it helps tremendously in this market right now, is the fact that it actually helps stop a counter offer. So we're seeing it left, right, and center. Candidates are backing out of the offer. They're saying, I know, James, I'm going to stay where I am. But if they know,
it's like preemptive. Is that what you're saying? It's like preemptive. You're anticipating. Holy.
Yeah. So I've been doing this.
You've already gone beyond what I would even have imagined, which really goes to show you, James, and this is something you've heard me say in the past, and it keeps coming up. You don't know what you don't know. So you have the expertise here that I don't have, and I wouldn't have even imagined that. So that's great.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Ago. And the reality is that's a lot of my clients, right? They're running a big real estate business. They don't have the time to put in these attraction strategies to hire and really focus all of their efforts on, hey, what is going out there in the talent market? How do we put the best package together? They just don't have the time. And that's why it takes somebody like myself who's working in our firm 10, 12, 15 hours a day to make sure you get the best service.
And you know what, James, what this brings up for me, and we can get to it later, but I'd like to work something out with you where you can offer some of my clients maybe a consultation and do some consulting for them. I don't know what that would look like or how much time it would take, but maybe for a flat fee, you could put together a few hours of consulting for them to at least get them to a certain level where they can implement some of what you're outlining here, right? So like a consulting, like headhunting.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we do have a consulting offer, fee-based offer, if that's something somebody's entertaining, where we do a discovery call, we do an entire intake, really find out where your gaps are in your entire attraction strategy. And the idea is we build an entire attraction strategy engine where you can flip a switch and essentially start the engine for recruiting and start the engine for attraction and all that fun stuff. So
it sounds exciting. So we'll maybe touch a little bit more on that later and how people can take advantage of that. But now we want to go to the third one, right? Am I correct? We have compensation, and now we're going to the third C.
Correct. So we have commute, we have compensation, and then the third one is career growth. So candidates obviously want to know, if I'm making the move, what is my upward trajectory? Can I become senior director? Can I become VP in 5 years? And this is where you can really set yourself apart from other people in the industry, because from my experience, 90% of employers don't do any of this. They just say, hey, here's the role. Yeah, you might be able to have something. It's really ambiguous. But if you said, hey, here's your talent map, here's your journey map to say, hey, you start with us, I'll go in 5 years. This is where we see you could be. Here's the next position that you could bump up to. And in larger organizations, that's easier to do. When you have a lot more structures, there's a lot more layers.
You're showing them the next step up the ladder. You're here, this is you, and this is where you could be.
Absolutely.
Sounds pretty simple. Now, I guess it would have to be a good sized company for that, right? Because if it's a mom and pop company, maybe there isn't too much stepping up. And actually, that's a good question for you, James. If you have an employer that's a really good company and they have a lot to offer, but because it's family owned, there really isn't a next step. How do those, because I imagine there's a lot of companies like that are family owned where there isn't, they don't have that to offer. What can they do to still attract good people? What's the consolation prize to that?
Brilliant question. This is actually my specific niche. These are the companies that I love working with who are under 100 employees. So this is exactly the people I love working who are in the high growth stage where the role is very dynamic. It's very entrepreneurial. They're wearing multiple hats. So yes, there's a lot of ambiguity when they just say, well, I don't know what your next step is, because depending where your skill set lies, you could go one direction or the other. So you can either talk about growth trajectory in terms of an actual title is number one, or number two, you talk about growth trajectory in terms of responsibility. So that's another thing that's enticing is if you're trying to attract top talent, the reality is top talent, they've studied this. You can look at George Smart and Associates. They've done thousands and thousands of studies and then backed this up. Top tier talent, A-level talent, the number one thing that they really look for is to be challenged. That's how you keep them. If they're not being challenged, they're gone. So if you can say, hey, you're going to get X, Y, Z strategic projects after you hit these milestones. If you become successful, we're going to give you obviously these bonus structures. Even having something as simple as having milestones and KPIs in place goes a long way as well. So they know what your expectations are. And then once they hit that, great. Maybe you can have another strategic project, or maybe this role can evolve into something else that this person is really looking forward to. But you don't know that until you understand them and their career goals in the intake call.
In other words, they may not have a change in title per se, but you're going to involve them almost like a board of directors position where they get to decide on these new projects to expand the company maybe and to go into new markets. And we're going to have you work on these special projects. And once you've been here a year or two, you'll be eligible to work on these special projects. That would be like, I guess what you're telling me and what I'm understanding here is that when you have a top level talent, they don't want to be bored. They need new challenges. So whichever way you can offer them, whether it's a new position in the case of an upwardly mobile company that offers you that, or in a family run company where you get special projects, maybe even profit sharing. Have you seen profit sharing in these type of companies?
At the executive level, there's definitely opening that. You have ESOP, which is employee share owned companies. So some companies are moving more towards that, but not too many. So if you have opportunity for that, obviously if it's a beginning startup, then if that's what they have to offer to attract talent to compete, they're going to do that for sure. Or they'll have project bonuses and incentives when project completion bonuses.
So what about, what's our fourth C, James?
Let's do it. So the fourth C is culture. This is a critical one. Yeah.
Can you define that for us? Because here we are. It's almost a cliche. People throw that word around. In your experience, which is considerable for a guy of your ripe age, how would you define corporate culture or company culture?
Yes. So this is exactly what you said. It's very ambiguous. Everyone says, oh, I want the right culture. Of course you do. But here's what I know. And how we define culture is there's company culture, and that's what the company has that you're walking into. And then there's your personal culture. And the culture is actually the DNA fit between both parties. So when you're looking at culture, it's actually very personable to each person and each individual. So it's the perfect match and merriment between the organization and the person in terms of their values, how they see the world, and their mission.
Wow, that's pretty deep. Can you give a simple-minded person like myself an example?
For example, yeah, I was just about to go there, so it's brilliant. You read my mind. For example, you could have LeBron James on the incredible basketball team. When he makes a move to a new team, it doesn't matter how skilled he is. It doesn't matter how great he is and all that he does. If he does not have the right alignment with the team's values, the team's mission, and the team's goals, it's not going to be a good fit long term. So he needs to be able to assess that coming in to the game, knowing, like, yeah, I said he's the most talented, one of the most talented people in the world, right? But in order for that to line up for his game, the culture has to be there.
So they basically have to be a good fit in that regard too. It's like in my personal opinion, I'm thinking of things like is there a health orientation at the company? Like maybe they have a gym on the premises, or they allow you to do different things. So
yes,
yeah,
and that's why this is super personable, because the people have to know themselves more than anything. So candidates actually have to know, and that's also the challenge. Everyone throws around, yeah, I want to make sure it's the right culture. They want to have great people to work with. They want to be able to be appreciated at work. They want to have companies that understand work-life balance, have that flexibility. Like those are kind of the standard boilerplate things a lot of people say. But then what is it that is really important to you? Like you said, is health important to you? Is that they have a gym incentive program? Is it that they focus on health events, right? What is the bigger vision of the company that you can align with? And then culture comes down to the minute things where, hey, do they have an open concept office, or do I get my own office? Is it an open door policy? Is it suit and tie versus very casual, laid back environment? All those things have to be considered, especially from an employer's perspective when they're evaluating candidates. So, and how you can differentiate yourself is having a clear, concise distinction of what your culture is. And how you do that is you interview your top 5, top 10 people in the organization and ask them, how would you describe our culture in 1 to 3 words?
And so that tells you what their perception of it is?
You got it.
Wow, that's excellent.
Yep.
So there's a lot of work that can be done there. Again, not necessarily something that I would think of right off the bat. I want to throw in a little bonus and get your comments on it. I've heard different things that are definitely not necessarily things that I study or in my area of expertise, my wheelhouse, like they might be in yours. So for example, I'm reading stuff like employees who feel that their voice is heard are 4.6 times more likely to feel empowered to perform their best work. They feel their voice is heard. How would you tackle that? Because you have to put that into something tangible if you're going to give advice to your employers. So
yes.
What would you say to that? What's your comment there?
So this is on the retention strategy. This is after we've already gotten them in the door. They're a great employee. And that's a lot of the times when I pick up the phone and call them, people are saying, hey, James, I don't feel valued. I don't feel my opinions, my ideas are being heard. And that's usually when people decide to jump ship or consider jumping ship for somebody else who will take on their ideas and take it seriously. So a very simple thing that you can do is, whether HR does it or the hiring manager does it, is you have quarterly pulse checks with your team. So that is literally an anonymous survey that you send out every quarter, and you just say, hey, how is this role fitting with you? How does it match with the expectations of you coming in and where you are today? What are some personal things you're dealing with that we might not know about that we can help you? So one is an anonymous one. And number 2 is literally having a sit down with each employee individually with their hiring manager or with HR and doing a pulse check just to check in and ask them, hey, Ago, how are you feeling? I just want to be open and honest with you. Is this everything that you were expected? How can we become better? And being open to that feedback. So it shows that you're hearing, but here's one caveat that I'll say to that strategy is to make sure that those ideas don't fall on deaf ears, where you could further perpetuate the issue. So if they say, hey, if the employee comes to them and say, hey, I wish I if they said, hey, I wish we had more flexibility to work from home. And then it's like, okay, make sure that those requests are at least followed up on because maybe you can't do that. Maybe say, hey, you know what, I really appreciate it. I'll go, but that's not something part of our culture, but I'll look into it with our management and see if there's anything we can do.
You have to pay serious attention to it. You have to really look at it and give them feedback, because without the feedback, they feel like it was ignored. So,
correct.
And
bringing up the conversation with like employee reviews and bringing up the conversation with, hey, you're talking about your bonus. A lot of the times I'm talking to candidates, they're like, oh, I want more money. And I'll tell them straight up, I'll say, great, have you talked to your boss about this conversation? And most of them, 90% of them don't.
You know what I'm hearing, James, and I think sometimes because I'm not in your industry or in your level of expertise, maybe I'm looking at it differently, but we always hear about job reviews, like we're always gauging the performance of the employee. Why don't we gauge the performance of the employer? Because there are things going on in the minds of these people, and if we don't address it, that we're just going to see them gone in 6 months or a year. So there should be I don't know, what would we call it? A company review, getting feedback from people and saying, listen, how would you rate your level of satisfaction in your job right now? And how does it compare with what you expected you were going to find here? It's not necessarily a popular thing to do, but I think that it would avoid somebody leaving because they felt like what we just said, that they weren't listened to, So
that's exactly what it's brilliant. No, that's exactly what the pulse checks do, is it gets real live data, real feedback from your employees, so you can see how your employees see the company.
And for me, how I would wrap this up for now, because we can go really deep in that area, is that if you pay attention to what's going on with your employees in terms of their level of satisfaction, I mean, I look at it from the company owner's point of view. They're going to be more productive, and if they're more productive, that's gonna be good for everybody, right? That's the way I look at it.
100%. They're going to be more productive, they're more efficient, they're going to make more money. Everything is just going to be turning all in all cylinders, which is the dream. But unfortunately, we don't have a magic ball that can cure that instantly.
So if people want to, because we're going to wrap this up for now, we'll do more talks like this in the future. Maybe we'll target one of the 4 C's and we'll go deeper. But if we want to wrap things up, where would they start? So if they wanted to have someone maybe do an assessment of where their company sits vis-a-vis these 4 C's, because of course that's important if they're going to hire people, then what type of consulting or report could you sort of do for them for a nominal fee that would allow them to be a good starting point?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you putting that out there. I'm in the process of actually building that out. So it will be constructionrecruiter.ca is where that's going to be hosted. So companies can come to that platform and assess and say, hey, where's my hiring game at? Where's my attraction strategy at? But in terms of a personalized approach, it's going to be different for each company. And I can put together more of a generalized report for anybody that is listening that wants to get a handle of that. You can definitely check out our website and contact me through there at adamslimitless.com. It's ADAMS, like the Addams family, limitless.com. And you can get in touch with me there. And there's a couple of resources on our website for clients in terms of an onboarding checklist. There's definitely some other things there you could check out. But in terms of a consulting, it is more of an one-on-one, because that's obviously what a consulting is.
That's awesome. And I think, we'll have another one of these calls where we focus more on where I fit in to the equation for some of these employers. And then, we make it better all around for these companies and employees out there. And then
and I'll just touch on that just to leave your listeners with this, is that the benefits package, I think, is highly underrated. because there's people won't even take your business seriously if you don't have a benefits package. Unless you're in a high growth startup or high tech company that you're getting employee shares and you're like, okay, fine, I'll ride it until we get there. But as soon as I tell a company or I take on a search that says, hey, we don't have benefits, it doesn't speak too well to the marketplace. Everyone just automatically expects it. So with what you're doing is definitely top notch for attracting the right talent for sure.
Yeah, so what our angle on that, and maybe I'm foreshadowing for our next discussion, is how to make it the best and not have it cost you a fortune. And it's a lot simpler than people might think. So that once we get into that next time, I think people will be surprised, as I'm sure they're surprised with our discussion today. So James Adams, thank you a million times for doing this. I'm Agostino Iermieri, and we're going to be signing off, and we will see you soon.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Ago. Appreciate it.
Thank you.